All right. Hey, what's up, guys? It's Coach Mac, Play Fast Football, here on YouTube Live to give a conversation about week 9 in high school football, at least week 9 in Florida high school football, which we just finished our ninth game of the season. We are now going into our last week of the season before the playoffs. And for us, it was our district championship game, which we ended up losing 51-18 to Bowles High School, which for any of you that are in the Florida area, you know that Bowles High School is one of the most dominant football programs in the state of Florida. Hello, Coach Smith. And it was, a tough loss for us. Obviously, we beat them last year. We won the district title last year. And we're hoping to do it again. It was the first time we had beat them in 40 years. So it would have been a huge get for us if we could have won 2 years in a row. What's up, King? But the thing for us is we proved that we belong in the conversation. The game was 24-18 with 11 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And then a bunch of things occurred to get the game kind of out of hand to the score, which it ended. So you think you look at a game that's 51-18 and you think that it's possibly, not even close, but that's really nowhere near the tail of the tape of the situation. It was 24-18 with 11 minutes left in the game. We blew a coverage on defense because of some personnel issues that we have. Gave up a 75-yard touchdown pass, threw a pick on the next drive. They returned it down to the 4 and scored a touchdown, threw a pick 6 on the next drive. So that was 21 points in about 3 minutes of the game. So the game went from sorry to hear that, Matt. If you guys are wherever you guys are coaching, I realize that everybody's years are in different kind of positions right now, but at least you made it to the playoffs. You guys got there, so that's something to build on. So, sorry to hear that you guys were bounced, but you made it to the playoffs. So that's a good accomplishment. King, late turnovers kind of distort the game a little bit, but it was really kind of a tale of two different games. We early on had some chances to get off the field on the first drive. We didn't do it. We had 3rd and 15, lined up in a neutral zone, knocked it down to 3rd and 10. They completed the pass for 11, so good on them. Then we had them 4th and 7, 2 free hitters on the quarterback, couldn't get him on the ground. He scrambled to make a play. But, when you're playing good football teams with good coaching staffs and good players, those are the things that are going to happen if you don't make plays. So, early in the game, we did not play very well on defense. They scored 24 points in the first half. Oh, dang, Joe. It would have been a good one for the good guys. So we were losing 24-7 at the half, weren't playing very well on offense. We really weren't playing well on defense either. Made some slight adjustments at halftime, about as many adjustments as you can make in a 13-minute period. To me, I've mentioned this a million times on videos, other places. Halftime adjustments in high school football, take it for what they are. If the second half works out, a lot of times it's more luck or execution than it is halftime adjustments. You've got 3 to 4 days to put a game plan in. And if the kids can't execute that, how are they going to execute something in 13 minutes? So we had to make some slight adjustments at halftime, just some adjustments with how we aligned in coverage, just to disguise some things a little bit better. We didn't make full schematic adjustments. We didn't do anything remotely different in the second half than we did in the first half. What we basically did was we disguised some coverages a little bit better. We took away some access throws and some RPO looks, and we got running backs on the ground, and we got ourselves into manageable down and distance. And then we won those battles that we weren't winning in the first half. So we were able to pressure the quarterback, not let him get out. We were able to do the things that we couldn't do in the first half. Then our offense clicked a little bit. We got the game back to 24-18, and then, let it get away from us from there. So we're now on to week 10, last game of the season for us. The interesting thing is we're probably going to play Bowles again in the first round of the playoffs, the way the playoff system works, which I don't think anybody in Florida understands. Max Preps runs it. I don't know what their ratings are. I don't know how they do their ratings. I just know that right now we're the 4 and the 5 seed in our region. So we're probably going to play again. I don't think they can move up or down. I don't think we can move up or down. So, at this point, we're trying to get back on track, play solid in a Week 10 game, hopefully keep everybody healthy, get some confidence back, do some things that we haven't been doing on both sides of the ball, all three phases, special teams included, and get back to playing good football for 4 quarters at a time. One of the things that's kind of plagued us all year long is defensively, at least, we don't play well for 4 quarters. So, especially in the games that we've lost, there's one game where we were pretty much outright beaten the entire time. But the other 3 losses, they were kind of, stories in themselves where, we were good early, bad late. We were good in the middle, bad early, bad late. We were good late, bad early. So, we got to get to a point where we can play 4 quarters. We got to get to a point where we can, play consistently across 4 quarters of a game on defense. And, really what it comes down to on offense and defense is it comes down to executing a game plan from the first kickoff till the last whistle, right? So, it's not always about, yes, there's adjustments that happen in game. Yes, teams come in and do things a little bit differently. Yes, maybe the game plan is a little bit different than you thought. And then the script plays different because you're down 21 points or you're up 21 points. So all those things from a coaching standpoint play into, each individual game. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to being able to line up, execute on. It doesn't matter whether you're on offense or defense. For me right now, I always talk about defense because I coordinate defense. I don't call offenses. I don't really, I help special teams as far as the skills and drills are concerned, but I don't scheme special teams. So, normally I'm talking about defensive stuff. And, for us, it's a matter of from the opening kickoff, being able to line up, get our eyes right, being able to fit runs, being able to cover in the passing game, being able to get home when we pressure, being able to cover behind pressures, all the things that you need to do consistently throughout the course of a game to be able to win football games. So, that's when you get late. Yeah, I mean, obviously, especially when you're playing a team like that, obviously they've got 15, 16 coaches on staff. They're all really good coaches. They got great coordinators, one of the best O-line coaches in the country, in my opinion. The head coach is a really, really good football coach. So, they've got great players and they've got great coaches. It's going to be tough, to go in there and think that you're just going to have a game plan that is too much for the other team to handle. They're going to be able to handle every adjustment. They've got a great staff. They've got great players. So, you don't become one of the all-time winningest programs with a bunch of state titles in Florida by luck of the draw. So, it's one of those deals where that's why you coach. That's why you play. You want that matchup. I want that matchup where they can answer what we're doing. We have to answer what they're doing. I want that matchup to where they can scheme and diagram some things to give us problems. And I want to scheme and diagram some things to give them problems. I mean, that's what makes coaching fun. If you go into games where they have no answer for what you're doing, or you go into games where your team is way better or their team is way better and those games get lopsided, that's really not coaching. So, it's always good when you can be, in the trenches of a great game with some schematic adjustments, with the things you can do to change, to change some things up, the things they can do to change some things up, what you're doing schematically, what they're doing schematically. That's why we do this. That's why we love it. That's why we come back every year. So, it's always a good challenge, and it's I read the beginning of that message, P Block. I can tell you the formation that absolutely drives us nuts right now. If we see 2 by 2 tight end wing to one side and twins or something to the other side, it absolutely gives us fits. So I can tell you right now, 11 personnel tight end wing with twins to the other side is something that kind of is really, really giving us issues all year long. So within our tight three high stuff, it's just something that we don't play very well. So probably need some type of adjustment, whether it's you know, moving the middle safety away from the Sam and playing more of a 3-4 deal. It's just one of those things where with our three high, the middle safety lining up off the back, depending on the types of offensives we're seeing, we don't always get the best read from the back. When it's 11 personnel 3-by-1 tight end attached or 11 personnel 2-by-2 with the tight end in the core weak, we're pretty good against that stuff. But when it's tight end wing to one side and it's twins to the other, that gives us some issues with where we want to set the Sam. What do we want to declare as the passing strength? Doesn't give our front much issues because we base out a tight front, but it forces our third level players to get involved in run fits. So, to me, that's the formation that is giving us 2-by-2 with twins to one side, tight end flanker, and running back to the other side, or 2-by-2 twins and running back to one side and tight end. I think depending on the structure you're playing, I think they all can be a little bit of an issue. If you're 4-2-5 like we were for years, or if you're tight three high like we are, you can only set the Sam to one side. He usually, for the most part, the Sam, the nickel, whatever you want to call him, he kind of becomes the wild card in the coverages and gives you your 3-on-2, 4-on-3. But then you got to figure out what you're going to do to the other side. So, when it's like twins to the field or tight end flanker to the boundary, or twins to the boundary, tight end flanker to the field, if you're a 4-2-5 team and you set the Sam to the passing strength, which is the twins, now you got to figure out what you're going to do to the tight end flanker, because now you've just got a will of safety in a corner. And, you've got to figure out, okay, well, if you move the will outside the box to help with the tight end to the flat, well, now you're lighter in the box. You're creating almost a 4-1 box. If you leave the will in the box, he probably can't handle the tight end to the flat. I know there's some teams who say they play quarters with the will in the box. I think that's an absolute lie. I think if the will's in the box away from the Sam, I think you're playing more of a man-to-man quarters concept where the safety's matching to the flat, which some people call red quarters or press quarters, whatever you want to call it. To me, it's not quarters defense. I'll argue that till I'm blue in the face. But it's part of the system, right? So if you lock the backside and you play the safety on the tight end, he's got him vertical and out. That certainly is an adjustment. If teams can run the ball that way, can your safety be able to play off of a tight end that's in the core blocking? Can you fit? Can you set the edge with that safety? Can you do all the things you need to do, with him as a quote unquote man player on the tight end? So I think, that formation can give you issues unless you're really, really good in the box and you can play 5-man boxes and you can empty the box a little bit to give you leverage to play true quarters or to give you leverage to play the things that you need. I would think, to me, probably, Ripley's match would probably be a real good answer to that scenario. You still have a safety in the middle of the field. You've got an overhang to the tight end side that can carry him vertical, but he's also there to be a D-gap force player. You can carry verticals and match bubbles and flat routes by number 2 to the twins. So I think that's probably a formation where maybe Ripley's match can help a little bit. But I think that formation in general, that personnel group in general, is something that, and the reason you don't see it more, in my opinion, is, I don't think you have enough 11 personnel bodies in high school that can play with a true tight end attached. You don't see enough teams that are, to me, if you want to live in that personnel grouping, you probably need to be an inside zone, outside zone team or a wide zone team. Because you start to, unless you're going to use your quarterback as a runner, you start to run into some gap scheme issues. You can run GT counter. You can probably run GT counter bash. You can read some things, but, it's one of the deals where, to me, if you're true one back and you're 11 personnel one back, to me, to be truly effective in that world, you need to be an inside zone, wide zone, outside zone team. I don't think gap schemes are as prevalent in those looks. You kind of lose a kick player. Yes, you can still run GT counter. You can run some other deals, but I think the teams that can be inside zone, wide zone, outside zone-ish, whatever you want to call it, from that personnel group, and then your RPOs off inside zone, and then your play actions or your boots or your quarterback keepers off of wide zone, outside zone. That to me is what makes those teams most dangerous. So it's just, to me, it kind of puts the defense in a bind. For us in the tight 3 high world, we got to figure out where we want to set the Sam. Once we set the Sam, now we've got 2 receivers to the other side that we have to figure out what we want to do with them. What's up, Tony? So can we lock one of our safeties on the tight end side? Yes, you can. To me, though, that was always presented some issues in the run game. What's vertical? Is the arc releasing to block somebody? Is it a vertical? Is it an arc release to block a force player or to block the safety? I think you need a really good safety to lock a tight end and be involved I do it all, Shadow X. I do a little bit of everything. I think you need a really good safety to be able to lock a tight end, show up in the run game. Now, again, I know there's a lot of people out there that are going to say that that's the press quarters world. Safety's got 2 up, safety's got 2 out. You can leave the will linebacker in the box. That's certainly one way to play it. One of the ways, when we were 4-2-5, one of the ways we would always play it is I would set the Sam to the tight end, and I would play quarters to the tight end. I'd remove the will. And now to the will side, we're playing palms, 2 read like we do to every 2 open set. And now to the other side, we're playing quarters. So the tight end side runs, we're in a really good spot because we have a force player that can handle the tight end to the flat. We have a safety that can add himself into the run fit based off what the tight end's doing. Leaves you in a little bit of a mod world on the number 1 to the tight end side. So teams with a good number 1, like, we're playing Bowls the other night. Their best receiver has 65 offers, including Alabama and Georgia. I don't have a lot of answers for that. So if they get me in a world where I've got to play true quarters and my corner's playing mod, their kid's probably going to win that battle a bunch. So, that's the other thing that comes into game planning and situations. If you go into a game where they've got a really good dude and a really good quarterback that are 2 Division I college football players, you've got to be able to handle that. But then if they've got bodies up front that can run the ball, how do you handle a really good dude outside that you don't match up well with, but still handle the run game, right? That's the challenge. That's why we do it. That's why we coach. And, I think we came up with some answers that were pretty good. And for the most part, they were good most of the night. But when they won pretty big. So, that kid had a 75-yard touchdown, and that kid had a 50-yard touchdown on an RPO glance. So, when we were solid, we were solid. When we were bad, we were bad. We gave up too many explosives. Trying to keep the ball inside and front is a theory. Trying to bleed slow is a theory. But if you're going to do that, I think your offense has to score points, and it's a complementary football game. So, for us, where we're at right now in that game, we needed to challenge more on defense. Unfortunately, going into the game plan, the guys that we needed to attack to win the game were the O-line and the quarterback. That's who we needed to get after. Their O-line isn't as good as it's been in the past. It's still very good. The O-line coach is, to me, one of the best in the country. I'll say it. I've said it 1,000 times. But the personnel up front is not as good. They're really young. I think they're gonna be good next year, which is scary. But right now, they're having some issues, and that's who I think you need to attack. But in order to attack the O-line and the quarterback, you've got to hold up on the back end. And when you're playing a kid that's got 65 Division I offers in Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State, and those are the offers that he's got, you've got to have some dudes to hold up. And we don't feel like we have those guys on the back end. So it's hard to challenge somebody if you can't win on the back end. But, hindsight being 2020, if bleeding slow isn't the answer, then you might as well challenge and take your chances that you hold up. And if you don't hold up on the back end, maybe you win on the front end and you move the spot of the quarterback, you get them ruffled a little bit, You kind of get some helmets to them. You change the throwing lanes a little bit. So that's to me the ultimate chess game of what we do. Right. That's the game plan going in. What's our game plan? What's their game plan? What are the things I think they can do that would really give us fits, and how do we defend that? And then do they do that? Are they um, and the team we played, the staff we played, they're certainly smart enough to do it. But you got to remember on both sides of the ball, you're with your team every day. You're with your team every week. You're with your team in practice. You know what your issues are. You can't always assume that the other team. I mean, you got to figure that they have film and they have coaches and they're going to figure it out. But I'll try in a second, Shadow. Um, you got to figure that they're going to eventually exploit those weaknesses if they have really good coaches and they have a bunch of huddle film. So you always have to protect those weaknesses going in. You have them. You know what they are because you're with your team all the time. And when you play really good football teams with really good coaches, you have to assume that they're going to exploit those. So you have to find a way to protect those. And unfortunately, what ends up happening is, you know, sometimes to protect your weaknesses, you can't execute the game plan that you need to execute to win the matchups that you need to win, right? So, if you're going to be aggressively attacking an O-line with a lot of movement and a lot of pressure, and you're trying to get after the quarterback, you're going to have to hold up on the back end. How you do that with your players on the back end is, different from school to school, from week to week. So, the weeks that you feel like you can hold up on the back end and you can go ahead and play what you want to play. The weeks that you feel like maybe you can't hold up on the back end, now you got to change your coverage structure. You got to play a little bit softer. You got to have more help. You got to do things that probably limit how much you can attack the O-line and the quarterback. So I hate to do this to you guys, but can you excuse me for 1 minute? I've got some cat issues. Give me 1 minute, please. All right. I hope some of you are still there. All of you are still there. I apologize. I know I'm probably the only live streamer in the world that has to handle issues with cats and pets and other things, but I completely apologize to you guys. All right. So getting back to sometimes my cat, yeah, the issue, Tony, is usually cats, whether it's cats on the field or cat in my house, it's cats in general. All right. So, Shadow, here's you know, man on demand mod technique usually means somebody handling receiver that's going to be vertical down the field. So, Meg would be man everywhere he goes. So you're going to try and man him up on every route. Mod would be I'm going to take him vertically. If he's shallow or underneath early in the down, I'm going to pass that off to somebody else. Your mod rules, man on deep routes, man on demand, however you want to look at it, usually mean that I've got him vertically. I've got all the vertical stems, but I'm going to pass off things underneath. Meg rules would be, you know, I'm probably going to play him everywhere he goes, right? Meg means man everywhere he goes. We play a lot more Meg than we do mod. But in matchups where we can't play Meg, we go into more of a mod mode where it's, we're playing vertical stems and things down the field, but we're not challenging those routes underneath early in the down, shallows, hitches, speed outs, things like that. So corners and mod on the twos. Excited to hear. We coach the safeties at mod is miss. Yeah, so I mean, you can go man except shallow when you're playing mod. A lot of teams when they're playing mod will play those rules, and then your Meg rules means you're going to play man everywhere he goes. So we, in our quarters theories for us, the way we play, our corners play more press Meg than they do mod. But Meg was not an answer for us the other night. It's not a matchup that we wanted to live in. So, um, and we weren't really in base quarters all that much. There was one formation that got us into, kind of true quarters ish rules, but most of the night it was some type of mod rule where it was, we might have been playing sky with a safety or a backer down to support the flat and a corner over the top of the deep routes of number one. We might have been playing our two read, had to change how we played to the twins a little bit, based on the things that they did and where they put their best receivers. So we didn't play a lot of our traditional palm steals for a lot of reasons. So we changed how we played the twins and probably got to alter that again for the playoff game. So, to me, mod means I wouldn't say prefer shadow. Palms is a quarters adaptation. Um, Palms is a coverage that came about because quarters teams versus two removed don't like playing true quarters rules. So the first thing you got to look at is your run fits. And if you're playing true quarters and you have a backer or a nickel that plays outside of two because he handles two to the flat and two on the wheel, now you're going to lose them in the run fit. So like spread personnel teams that are two removed, if you play somebody outside the number two, you lose them in the run fit. If your safety has two vertical, so like when you look at Ripley's match teams, they're going to play outside of two, but they're going to scooch out and carry two in the seam, right? If you're playing quarters defense, you usually, unless you bastardize it a little bit, you won't really carry two in the seam. Two in the seam becomes the high safety quarters players deal. And, your nickel outside linebacker, whoever that may be, he becomes a curl flat player with two in the seam. So, it's one of those deals where Palms is there to handle two removed. It's a quarters adjustment to two removed, so that if number two goes to the flat, the corner can play it and it becomes cover two. That's why it's called two read. Two read basically means either you're reading number two, or two read means it's going to go to cover two based on the route distribution. Four verticals ends up becoming some type of man down the field, so you don't get in the burden that you can get into playing old school cover two, where a receiver outside down the sideline and a receiver inside on the hash mark can give you a lot of issues. If you don't jam funnel a receiver in and wall a number two out, the safety that's on the hash mark has got a lot of room to cover, because now you have an outside, you have an outside seam window and an inside seam window. So if you want to look at the outside vertical and the inside seam, however you want to terminology that, however you want to look at it, you've got holes in your defense because you are playing cover two, where Palms kind of takes care of that. If both guys go vertical, you can match them both man. If two goes to the flat, you can roll a corner down, the safety goes to one, so it becomes cover two. But it's really more like, for us, if I was going to be totally honest with everybody, Palms is more of a run fit deal than it is a pass coverage deal. It's Palms allows us to play our overhang inside of number two, and it allows us to let him be tighter to the fit. And then in our fronts, we've got to be able to do things to eliminate B gaps so the overhang can hold the RPO windows a little bit longer. So Palms is not really, it's not the coverage part of it for us as much as it is the run fit. The other thing you got to remember in Palms is if number two takes a split from number one, that is far enough to where the safety can't get over the top if two goes to the flat. So like if you're playing tight end flanker in traditional splits, if you try to play that in Palms and the tight end goes to the flat, the safety will never get to one if the corner comes down on the tight end in the flat. So if you were playing a wide number one with a tight number two, you probably want to play more of a quarters deal. And, because of the splits of the one and the two, you won't be able to handle that in Palms distribution. If two went to the flat, the safety will never get to one if the corner comes down on two to the flat. So, a lot of times the splits have to do a lot with whether or not you can play palms or whether or not you need to play quarters. But really, palms became an adaptation to teams that were quarters teams. And when they started going two removed, it's like, okay, how can we play our base quarters rules with two removed? Um, you know, if two's removed, and I have to, for us, the way we play it again, this is an argument that you could have a million times, and I've had it a million times. I am not a fan of that, Tony, at all. Um, I am not a huge fan of playing a guy inside of two that has to carry him on the wheel. And if you play, again, terminology and verbiage in football is always going to be something that is going to be it's almost like a political, it becomes political in football. But to me, if you're playing quarters, the outside linebacker is the guy that handles two to the flat. And if you're playing quarters, you want the outside linebacker to handle two to the flat, because if two goes to the flat, you want the safety to double number one. That's kind of the origin of quarters. A couple things versus tight end sets. It was to get an extra guy in the box. It was also versus the number ones in the NFL game that were Jerry Rice and guys like that. If the tight end wasn't vertical, you could build a wall to the post with the safety, and you could defend posted curl with safety help. So the corner had help on number one. So to me, true quarters, or at least the way I know true quarters defense to be. And again, somebody else will argue and tell you that that's not quarters, and that's what makes football great. But the way I learned quarters in the 90s and the late 80s when I was growing up, quarters is an outside linebacker nickel that's going to be outside of two, and he's going to handle two to the flat. If you play somebody inside of two and tell me that he's got to handle him on the wheel, I am not a big fan of that. I don't think that's feasible. I don't think that's possible. If you play the safety on two out and up, that's not quarters to me. So again, it's all verbiage, it's all vernacular, it's all terminology. When you're talking to people, we really only carry Shadow one. We really only carry one version of pattern match for that reason. So we don't play Ripley's match. We don't play other pattern matches, quarters, variations, palms. That's our only pattern match stuff. Our change-ups become spot drop stuff. So in keeping, while you make that point, in keeping, play fast is not a lot of people look at play fast and they thought that was an offensive terminology because we were a tempo team. No, it's not. When I started this channel 10 years ago, play fast is more of a mindset, right? So play fast is a mindset that says, all right, how can we do things that allow our kids to play the fastest on Friday nights, right? We want them to think less, and we want them to be able to see pictures and mentally play as fast as they can. So, a lot of times I'll get people that'll ask me when I do videos, um, if you carry I agree with that, man. If you carry all these things, how can your kids play fast? Well, all the things that I talk about in videos, I don't carry in a game plan, right? So when you're creating content and you're doing videos for 10 years on X's and O's, and you're not analyzing college games, you're not analyzing NFL games, you're strictly talking about schemes on X's and O's. At some point, you have to create content. Sorry. So you've got to be able to talk about a bunch of different things. That doesn't mean I play all of those things, because I agree with people. If we played all those things, no, we wouldn't play fast. Yes, we would think too much. And the issue I run into all the time as a coordinator is every week with a game plan, every time I wrinkle the game plan, am I slowing our kids down? And, to be honest with you, I felt like that Friday night. We changed how we play certain sets because we felt like we couldn't match up with the opponent. And now when we do that, our kids are going against what we've taught them for months at a time. They're going against what we've taught them all summer. They're going against what we've taught them. And, sometimes as good as game plans are, and as good as wrinkles are, and as good as you need to feel like as a coach, you need to match a game plan every week. if the game plan involves adjustments that you have to talk about all week long on Friday night, how well are the kids going to play that? Sometimes I think you'd be better off going into games and saying, hey, look, this is our scheme. This is what we do. This is what our kids do. Maybe the matchup isn't good for us, but this is what we do that gives us the best chance to play fast. This is how we play football. And unfortunately, as a coach, when you game plan, you see schemes, personnel, things that you think are going to be an issue for your defense or your offense. So as a coach, what do? You try to give your kids answers in that toolbox, right? So, you don't want your kids to go on the field in losing situations. So you try to give them answers inside of a toolbox. Well, every answer inside of the toolbox is another wrinkle, another adjustment, another thing that you got to teach the kids that you got to hope that they can grasp in 3 to 4 days and play on Friday night. So to me, the catch 22 as a coordinator always becomes, can we do the things inside of our scheme that let our kids play fast, right? The moniker of the channel. Or do we have to make adjustments that are probably going to cloud the thinking a little bit, and maybe we won't play as fast, right? So that to me is in a nutshell, that is what we're always fighting against, right? But at the end of the day, if you go in and say, look, this is what we do, this is how we play football, there's a couple mismatches out there that we don't like, but I'd rather my kids line up and play and get beat physically than, do some things that we feel on paper are really good, but our kids can't play them in 3 days. So that to me, that's part of the why and what we do. That's part of how we do what we do, game plans, adjustments, wrinkles, film. There's a reason why teams end up trading and getting 19 films on an opponent, right? You're trying to uncover every single thing that's been done. You're trying to look at every wrinkle that they've used, every gadget that they've used, every formation that they've used. And really, at the end of the day, in 4 days, how can you possibly prepare for all that? There's no way you can prepare for all that. So you've got to have a plan in place where you are defending the things that they're going to do most often. You're defending the things that they do best. And then the other things that they try to do, you've got to have a system that has answers for that. But that's not really where you lay the game plan. The game plan isn't on covering all those things. I think sometimes as a coordinator or a coach, you feel like we've got to show our kids everything they've done to give us a chance to win. Well, to me, like the way we practice, we really have a day and a half on defense. Our kids play both ways. They're involved on both sides of the ball. So in a day and a half on defense, how in the world are we going to show them everything the other team has done? We really can't. We've got to show them the things that show up all the time. And then any gadgets or wrinkles or things that they've used for explosives or things that they've used to generate big plays. We need to show that, but we don't need to show every single, rep of every single play and formation that they've run, because there's no way you can card all that. There's no way you can card every one of those things and get it to where you've shown your kids everything that they can do. If you look at 3 under 3 deep, match, carry, deliver, the way 3 under 3 deep was meant to be played, you're kind of matching routes. When you fire zone 3 under 3 deep, you're kind of matching routes. You could play some combination coverages where you're matching the passing strength side and trying to get an extra number there, but you're playing man. So like if you sent 5 to 2 removed, you could try and play palms and see if you can get 4 for 3 there. But then to the backside, you're probably going to be 2 for 2 locked up. So there's a bunch of ways that you can play match coverages behind your pressures. Yes, you can do that. Do we consider it at times? Yes, but most of the time, no. Most of our blitzes are either eyes coverage, hot pressure, 3 under 3 deep with hot pressure mentality. We do not match, carry, deliver when we go 3 under 3 deep. And the reason for that is we don't carry rip, Liz match. So that's another pattern match that I would have to teach. For the amount of times we are going to run 5-man, 3 under 3 deep pressures, I would much rather vision and break, hot drop it with somebody, 2 seams, somebody underneath 3, and then, we're kind of playing vision and break off the cue, but that's just philosophically what we do. The quarters adjustment where if 2 on a flat becomes a wheel, cornerback takes it and sends 1 to the post to the safety. that was a big thing for TCU, the way they would play it. Their corner could handle two on the wheel. The issue, again, I get with that is if you were playing quarters coverage and you were trying to get a double on one, if the corner handles two on the wheel, you never ever get a double on one. So if one is their dude, if one is their best player, and you were playing a structure that based on the route distribution, you could get help on one. If the corner plays the wheel, you're never going to get help on one. So now, if they run two on the wheel and the corner plays it, and one runs the post, now it's their best player on your safety. Is that really what you want? So that certainly P block is a way that people play it. That's certainly, I know TCU had adjustments like that in their deal. But to me, philosophically, if their best player is the number one and two to the flat gets handled by the corner, then you never ever get a double on number one. So if I was going to play a quarters deal because of run fits and because of trying to get post dig curl help on number one, I don't want to play the corner on the wheel of number two because now I'm stuck playing man on number one. So, if that was the deal, I would just play palms. If I play palms, the corner is going to end up on the wheel and the safety is going to end up on number one. So, there's really no reason to create another coverage to play the corner on the wheel in a quarter scenario. If I want to play the corner on the wheel, I can just play palms and get all of the same deal. So if I were to play quarters, it's because I want the Sam or the nickel on the wheel so that the safety in the corner can double number one. And in the matchup, I'm going to take my chances with the Sam on number two based on personnel, based on what they do. Again, philosophical. I know people do it. I've seen people do it. For me, it's just a philosophy thing. If I'm playing quarters to get a double on number one based on two to the flat, then I'm not coming out of my rules of how I handle two to the flat. If I was going to do that, I would just play palms. That's just me. Ripley's match is a three deep version that kind of, Saban is the godfather of it. He was in the NFL. They were playing spot drop, cover three. Dan Marino and other quarterbacks were ripping balls behind the ear of their spot drop players, and they were getting four verts and things that they couldn't handle. So they came up with a coverage that is called Ripley's match. And what it basically means is your overhangs, usually your nickel safety and one of your high safeties, depending on which way you spin the coverage, they're going to take two up and two out. And they're going to play it with outside low demeanor, forcing all throws to be a little bit higher and a little bit more inside to force it to the free safety inside. It gives you tighter coverage than traditional spot drop cover three, but it creates some other issues in the coverage that you got to deal with. So most people that play that coverage, especially in high school, you probably need to hang your hat in that coverage. Obviously, Alabama has the ability to play split field coverages and quarters concepts while playing Ripley's match. We are not Alabama. We're never going to be Alabama. We're never going to be able to carry all the things that they carry. So we do not carry that. But it's basically a post safety defense, middle of the field closed defense, in a way that you can get some tighter coverage on four verticals or two to the flat. But you've got to understand how you're fitting runs now, because in the RPO world and in the spread world now, when two goes to the flat, if the overhang matches it, you're left with six in the box. Who's the force player? Is your force player the five technique? Is your force player the linebacker? Because now with two to the bubble in the run game, quarterback run, other stuff, you start to lose extra fitters in the box, right? And if you look at what's given Alabama the most trouble the last 10 years, mobile quarterbacks, quarterback run game, a lot of their matching man principles where the quarterback can extend plays and they don't get home. That's where Alabama has the most issues. So you got to pick and choose what you're trying to play based on what your kids can do, based on what your philosophy is, and then based on what you think you need to handle. So, the one thing I can tell you as a coordinator or somebody that's been doing this a long time, every scheme, every structure, every coverage has issues. You cannot answer everything the other team does. You cannot sit in a coverage and say, hey, it's the be all end all, for everything that they do. No, it's not. Offenses are smart. Coaches are smart. If they know the coverage you're in, they're going to, dial things up that can beat that coverage. So I don't know what Fox technique is. If you've heard that wrong, then I apologize, Shadow, but I don't think I didn't mean Fox. I don't think I said Fox. I certainly didn't mean Fox. I don't know what Fox technique is. Where and how does that triangle of yours, vision and break triangle, show up? Two linebackers and safety. What pressure package? We do it from six man a bunch. We probably ran it 20 times Friday night. So we send six, and then we have our Sam linebacker and one of our safeties play what we call burn two. So they're playing a man alignment on a number two receiver, but they're playing with vision and break zone integrity. So they're playing through the eyes of the quarterback. They're playing off the intentions of the quarterback. So if they're in the shotgun and they're going to rip access or bubbles, the quarterback has to raise up and throw the ball. So, when we send six man pressure, we expect the ball to come out. We allow our guys to play off the intentions of the QB so that if he raises up to get the ball out, we are driving those throws extremely, aggressively, but we're not playing zero man. So we're playing, man alignment with more vision and break eyes coverage. Like when you hear Kirby Smart talk about it, and you hear like when Michigan State and Pat Narduzzi were doing it, it's vision and break or eyes coverage. You're letting your guys look in the backfield, where in a lot of your pattern match coverages, that's the last place you want your guys to look. You don't want them looking in the backfield at the quarterback. You need them to match routes off of receivers. So when we play our vision and break stuff, it lets kids look at the quarterback, which is what they like to do. And for us, it gives us a way that we can be aggressive with pressure, but still have guys that have zone vision integrity. So we give up less big runs than we do when we're in zero man. We give up less big passes than we do when we're in zero man, simply because we have more eyes on the backfield action, more eyes on meshes, more eyes on quarterback quick game and things like that. So, if you want to study, if you study Brian Flores when he was with the Dolphins and now he's with the Vikings, a lot of his house pressures, if you search it on YouTube or you find anybody that talks about it, that's kind of the philosophy we play when we send six. We line up our guys over a one, over a two, over a three, but we allow them to play the coverage with their eyes inside, because when we send six, if the ball is going to come out, then it's going to come out rather quickly. And if your eyes are on the quarterback in the shotgun, normally a quarterback in the shotgun, to throw the ball quickly, he's got to grab the snap and he's got to give you a demeanor that the ball's coming out. Now, if he meshes and it's going to be run game RPO, now we hold our water a little bit longer. We're not triggering anywhere. If he drop back passes to where he takes the snap and 3-step or 5 steps, however you want to look at it, now the burn one players are going to defend the third. The burn three player is going to defend the middle. And now it becomes more like a traditional, vision and break hot pressure per se. It's 3 deep with 2 underneath players. So it's good versus a lot of things. It's not good versus some things. If teams 7-man protect and full slide and you can't get home, there's a lot of windows into coverage because you're only playing 2 under, 3 deep. That's where you can get hurt. So you need to understand when to use it, how to use it, why to use it. For us, it's an answer. To be honest, again, a lot of the things, and I've mentioned this in several videos, as a high school defensive coordinator, for me, a lot of the answers I have are answers for run game. They're not answers for pass game or coverages. The problem with information on the internet right now is if you searched any coverage on football and you search any clinic talking about coverage, most of the time, all you're ever going to see is the pattern distribution and how that coverage plays in the passing game. Well, we still live in a world in high school football where I will bet you dollars to donuts, even in Florida, high school football is 70% run, 30% pass. There's going to be an outlier. There's going to be outliers every once in a while that chuck it 50 times a game. That is not the norm. That is not the base of high school football. High school football is still 70% run. So for me, when I scheme a lot of 5 and 6 man pressures, they're actually run pressures. They're actually pressures that I'm designing to move smaller players and give us a chance to play the run game. I do not, in our game plan stuff. And again, this is all personal. It's all philosophical. The only thing that is not true. Well, Alabama high school football might be 96% run. I agree with that. The only thing that I even think about protection-wise when I scheme pressures is our third down package. That's our third down nickel stuff. our extra DBs, linebackers on the field, our speed rush guys. That's the only thing that we base off of protection. That's the only thing that we base off where the center's turning. That's the only thing that we base off trying to get home. If I pressure on 1st and 10, I can 100% guarantee you I'm pressuring into run game. If I pressure on 2nd and 7, I can 100% guarantee you I'm pressuring in the run game. I am moving people, sending people, because I cannot line up in base defense and defend runs all night long. If you follow me on this channel, if you've seen me on live streams before, my defensive linemen are 165 to 175 pounds. That's who we're playing with. Yes, we're in Florida. Yes, it's big time football. Those are the D linemen that I'm playing with. So my nose is 180-pound freshman. I have a 4-eye on one side that is 5'7", 170 pounds. I have a 4-eye on the other side that's about 5'11", 175 pounds. I'm playing a freshman at nose, a 10th grader at 4-eye. We have to move into run game. We have to move to be able to handle run game. And one of the reasons we play tight front 3 high is because we try to eliminate B gaps. We try to force the ball to get run wide, and we try to run it down with our 2nd and 3rd level players. I cannot line up in the box and defend vertical runs. I cannot do it. We will not do it. There's no way we can do it. So we play a bastardized version of lag technique stuff. So really it's, to me, the easiest way to describe it in high school, I would play the nose off the ball and tell the nose that he's trying to play through the center's face and out the center's ass on the other side. That's what I would teach as a lag technique. I wouldn't teach a nose to play a lag technique that is more read and react. I would play more of an attack and react. So I would say the way we try to play it, the nose is going to come off the ball vertically and try and get through the center's face and out the other side of his ass. And now when the center zone blocks, you're going to be in the backside A gap. If you try and read that to say, all right, look, if you get zone blocks, you're going to fit in the backside A gap, and then the linebacker is going to clean that up. We don't have enough time to do that. We only have defense a day and a half. Easiest way for me to teach lag technique to a nose is get a kid that's going to get off the fucking ball, and get a kid that when the center snaps the ball, he is off the ball so violently that no matter what the center does, he's in the backside. That's the best way. Or, for some of the kids that we have, we'd be better off moving the nose based on tendencies, based on where the backs are, and then telling our linebackers that have to clean that A gap up. They have to know where the nose is moving to know which A gap is going to be open. So I think philosophically in high school football, those are the 2 ways that you can play. You move the nose, or you play lag by playing vertically off the ball and getting after the center's ass. That's always a great theory in high school football. Put your best player on the nose and get after the center's ass. You're going to demand double teams. And if your get off is violent enough, you're always going to be in a backside A gap. You're going to get reached every time, right? So, to me, and the reason we play that front is it allows my inside linebackers to play A to C gap based on what we're reading. Like if we're reading a sniffer or a fullback, we're going to be A to C gap based on where that sniffer or fullback is. If we're full line reading and we're reading under keys, we're reading centers, guards, whatever, based on their blocks, we're going to be A gap to C gap. That's how we fit. That's why we play tight front. I think it's the easiest way to consistently fit runs with your inside backers. You can play clear cloudy. You can play, open windows, fit open windows, scrape doors, or close the windows, however you want. Fit an open door, scrape a closed window, however you want to look at it. There's a million ways to look at it. We play tight front, and even when we play 4 down, we try to eliminate gaps so that our backers are always cognizant of going A to C, A to C. Now, we stack, track, fall back on some of our fits so that depending on where the back is set, that's going to dictate who the C gap fallback player is going to be and who the A gap player is going to be. One of the best, if you're playing zone teams, one of the best teaching points I've ever heard is with your inside linebackers. If the back's to me and he enters vertically, I'm fallback C. If the back's away, I'm the A. So, that's all vertical entry inside zone. Now, if the back went flat across the quarterback's face, Well, now on full flow, fast flow wide, now the front side backer is the C gap player, the backside backer is the A gap player. If you are reading fullback sniffers, whatever, and you get something that takes you away from the spot. So if we're reading a Y off tight end or a sniffer fullback, whatever you want to, if his key or if he is, what we are looking at, right? He's the indicator. If there's a puller away from the indicator, we always go with the puller. So, there's a couple different ways to look at that. And then that all comes down to tendency, game plan. If the Y off takes you to 90% of the runs, well, that's the guy we're going to read. And we'll live with the other 10%. If there's a lot of bass theories where the Y stays front side, but it's GT the other way, well, now we've got to see that the indicator stayed, but under keys took us away. So, to me, that's the hardest part with studying football. If you study football on the internet, if you study football in clinics, if you study football on YouTube, if you study football on videos, most of the time on the back end, they're always going to talk to you about coverages and not run fits. When you can get a good run fit video, when you can get a good video that takes you through how they fit runs based on coverage, based on the front, that's worth its weight in gold because nobody, a lot of people don't talk about that. And to me, living in the play fast moniker, I want two inside linebackers that fit runs as consistently as possible all night long in almost every front I play. So when we play 4 down, it's a bastardized version of 4 down. We are going to take gaps away. We are going to stunt to make it as similar to the tight front picture as we can. So a lot of people don't like that because we leave a lot of short edges. So when we play 4 down, the 3 and the 5 might be going under to the A and the B gap all the time. Short edge, the ball falls off the pool table really quick in football terminology. Well, I have to live with one or the other. If I play them 4 down in traditional fronts that have 2 open gaps and I'm a 3 high team, I can't fit both open gaps. I'm relying on a safety at 8 yards to fit an A gap. That's not a way I want to live. I want the safety at 8 yards to fit things from the C gap out. I want to push the ball out in the 3 high world. That's what we do. So when we go 4 down, we constantly have to stunt the front, or we got to play a heavy 5 on the backside to eliminate that B gap so that my backer that's left in the box can run A to C, A to C. So we usually try to leave, if there's one gap open inside, we try to tell that linebacker it's that gap to C gap. So runs to you, runs away. Don't your safeties play run fits? I mean, our safeties, depending on the coverage, they're part of the run fit. If you're playing 2 read, your high safety is really not part of the run fit. He's only in the run fit if they crack the Sam. So if you're playing palms, pattern match, that safety is really not included. Our backside safety, if he's down playing sky support, you might count him in the run fit, based on where the back is or based on what the back's doing or based on RPOs. But, in a true quarters world versus 21 personnel, I would consider that safety is going to be involved if the tight end blocks. But in the world we live in the spread game, if you're playing palms or 2 read, the high safety to the number 2 receiver, he's not really included in the fit. He'll crack replace if they block the Sam and the ball matriculates outside, but he's never going to be in the inside part of the fit if you're talking about the run fit itself. So, I think that's Shadow kind of an interesting in-between question with what you consider in the fit and what you consider out of the fit, and what blocks would get you into the fit or where are you lined up to be in the fit. And that's kind of part of the quarters 2 read adaptation. If you're playing quarters with a nickel outside of number 2, he's out of the fit. He's outside number 2. He's not going to be in the fit. The only way he's ever going to be involved in anything is if it's jet sweep, perimeter run, toss out to that side. He's not going to be in the run fit. If he's out of the run fit, then you probably need to add your safety to the run fit. Well, if you're playing quarters and your safety has 2 vertical, how fast can you get him to the fit if he also has a number 2 removed vertically down the field? That's the issue to me in quarter style defense. Now, when you play Ripley's match, the overhang is taking 2 in the seam vertical because there's a free safety in the middle of the field and you're trying to make throws go to the free safety. So now that overhang is kind of out of the fit in Ripley's match because if 2 goes vertical and he carries them, how can he be in the run fit if he's carrying 2 vertical? If 2 goes out and he bubbles, how can he be in the run fit if he matches 2 in the bubble? So, figuring out who's in the fit and who's out of the fit is kind of based on coverage and then based on pattern match responsibilities. So I don't think you can just say your safeties are in the run fit because it's match coverage. I don't think that's, you know, um, that's probably not the greatest way to look at it. Certain coverages and certain personnel groups, they'll be another hat in the box. So if you're playing quarters defense to 21 pro personnel, well, the reason you're doing that is you want to get 9 helmets as quickly as possible in the run fit because the quarter safeties, based on blocking schemes of who their vertical match is, if I'm matching a tight end vertical and the tight end blocks, he can't run vertical. So now if my vertical threat is gone, I can add myself into the fit. But that's, a little bit different conversation than to just say that safeties in match coverage would be in the run fit. So, again, that's what makes the game so great. Those are all the things that you got to think about. And that's probably why in high school, a lot of the times you see a lot more teams play way more man coverage, um, way more pressure orientated, because they don't want to deal with having to teach run fits, who's in the fit, who's out of the fit, to all the different formations they're going to see. So when you play man to man, it's a lot easier to line up to base formations. There are no coverage checks. Your dude has their dude. And then you're trying to either gap out your movements or you're trying to get guys that are playing man to man on the back to make plays. A lot of time, I don't think you're going to see a ton of quarters to 3x1. You'll see quarters adaptations to 3x1. Maybe you'll see quarters to 3x1 tight end detached, because you got to remember in true quarters, the Mike is the 3-up player. So way back in the day when the game was less spread involved and there were more tight ends attached in the core, you would get teams that would play quarters to the trip side and they would let the Mike carry 3 vertical. When you start talking about quarters issues with 3x1, backside safety playing poach rules on a 3 vertical is kind of the quarters adjustment that had to happen versus spread teams. So your A gap run fitter is the Mike linebacker and number 3 is removed and he has him vertical. That's what quarters defense is. Quarters defense, your inside backer is going to be a 3 vertical player if you're playing true quarters. So, I don't think you can, to me, you can't really look at it as a quarters versus Ripley's match deal. A lot of the times in Ripley's match versus 3x1, you're going to get some type of adjustment. They call it skate. They call it Mabel. They're going to kind of sling the coverage to the trip side, and it's going to become more spot drop-us in nature and less Ripley's match. Yes, they have versions where they can play Ripley's match and how they handle 3 vertical and the old 3-up is 3 argument and those things. But to me, I don't think you can even really look in today's game. I don't think you're ever going to see true quarters to 3x1, because in true quarters, your inside linebacker is the 3 vertical player. Now, for us in the 3 high world, that's one of the reasons we went to 3 high. My inside linebacker never plays 3 vertical. My middle safety plays 3 vertical. So, we live in a world where I always have Bama. I never pick against Bama, but I think it's a good matchup for us if our offense plays well. I like that matchup better than I like Ole Miss. I like that matchup better than I like some other teams. So I think we should be fine if we're healthy and defense plays well. Defense is only going to get better. They're young. Caleb Downs is probably the best freshman in the country by far. I think that matchup, LSU, Alabama, I'm going with Bama all night long. But LSU is good enough, and we're Jekyll and Hyde enough that I could see us losing that game. But I always pick Bama. I never bet on Alabama. I've never placed a bet on Alabama in my life, especially back in the day when they were always laying 17, 20, 24 points. The way they play football, the way they used to play football. There was a stretch where, with starting with Kiffin as the coordinator and then Sarkisian and some other guys, and when they had Tua and they had Bryce Young and they had Jalen Hurts, there was a stretch where I might have laid 17 points. But when you grow up an Alabama fan in the 80s and late 70s, 80s, early 90s, I'm not laying points all that often because that's not the way they played. They played back in the day where we're going to limit possessions. We're going to hold teams to 17 points and we're going to score 21. That's the way they played football for years when I was growing up. So I was never really big on laying points with Alabama. But back to your argument, Shadow, I don't think you can look at the argument of quarters versus Ripley's matching 3-by-1, because 3-by-1 becomes quarters adjustments. For us, how do we make that adjustment? We have a middle safety that in our 3 high deal, much like Iowa State does, and they made it kind of famous, but we have a hybrid safety that handles 3 verticals, so we can do. Yes, we do. We make a do it call, Tim, and our corner makes a do it call when he's going to come down to play 2, and that tells the safety to go to 1. But we also try to teach it to where they can do it without the do it call. Our landmark, our guideline for that is 2 to the flat underneath the Sam linebacker or the overhang. So we don't give a yardage, we don't give steps, we tell the corner and the safety, if 2 is to the flat underneath the overhang, that's going to be a trade-off. The corner is going to play 2 and we're going to go to 1. Yes, we make a verbal do it call, but my question is, if you're playing in front of 10 or 15,000 people, will you hear that? So I think at some point you also have to rely on your eyes and your rules to understand when you're going to play that trade-off, because I don't know if you can hear that all the time. But yes, we have a call. It's called do it. Do it tells the safety to go to 1 because the corner is going to 2. And we make that call at the corner. That's how we do it. 2 coverages, man free, and 3 safety with corners mag. Safety's mine. Free safety plays 3. Keep our box. Yeah, I think you have to, Frank, if you're playing, if you have small numbers. I know you guys obviously are a small private school playing with limited number of kids. You're only going to get X amount of reps. You have to keep everything as conducive as you can for those kids. You can't play a bunch of different things. You're never going to have enough time to do it. The issue with that is you now live in a world where you know the things that are going to give you issues, and either you're good enough that night or you're not. You don't have a ton of answers. You don't have a ton of things you can do differently. So each week you go in, you're going to kind of be stuck in a world where, hey, they do something that gives us a ton of trouble and they got really good players. This is going to be a long night because you don't have a ton of answers. But you also live in a world where your kids are going to line up and play hard every week because there's limited adjustments. So I certainly understand that. We're not far removed from where you guys are. So, yeah, we roll the coverage to certain sets. That's one of our 3-by-1 adjustments is 3 cloud, or we call it roll coverage. But I think it certainly still has a place in football. It becomes to that side an older version of cover 2, really, in essence. When I teach it to the corner and safety, I teach it as cover 2. So even though we're rolling the safety to the outside third, if it's 3-by-1, somebody else always handles 3 verticals. So we're telling the safety that he's got the deep half of 1 and 2. We're going to lean on 2 and rally to 1. If 2 takes himself out of the vertical, now we can lean on 1. Corner's going to jam funnel 1 inside. We're going to try and get the Will or the Sam to wall 2 out so that the vertical threats on the safety are, pushed out and pushed in to make his job a little bit easier. But we certainly carry 3 cloud, and it may be something we carry next week more often than not. So hopefully nobody from Bowles is on this live chat. I wouldn't assume they would be, but if they are, that's certainly something we're thinking about doing in certain sets, is playing a 3 cloud theory, because we think it helps us versus RPOs, access throws, and we think it helps us for a lot of reasons. So, yes, we play 3 cloud. So, I've been on here for an hour and 10 minutes, guys. As usual, when it's Tuesday night, I have film that I've got to review. I have work that I have to get ready for practice tomorrow. So, appreciate all you guys being here. This is probably the best live we've had in the last 5-6 weeks. Before I leave, though, I did want to ask, what does everybody think of the first college football poll that came out? There is no way in hell you can tell me Ohio State's a better football team than Georgia. I'm not buying it. How that came about, I have no idea. I know we don't talk too much about college football here, but the last couple times I did this stream, I did give my opinion on college football. My opinion right now is if Ohio State's better than Georgia, then I have not watched a lot of football in my life. There's no way, based on the games they play, the opponents they play, you can tell me that Ohio State is better than Georgia. I'm not buying it. So while we have a minute or two, if you guys want to give your opinion on what you think, I agree with Michigan and Florida State right now. I do not disagree with that. I agree with the top 4. right now. I don't disagree with the top four. I just don't agree with who number one is, and that's just me watching with my own eyes the human element of football. I can't buy that Ohio State's a better football team than Georgia. There's no way. So um, I don't think they're counting Georgia out per se. I think they're taking into account that Georgia struggled a little bit more than most people, um, more than most people thought they would struggle. I think everybody thought Georgia was going to win every game by 30. And because they've had a couple scares here or there, I think that's backed some people off. But who is making those determinations? And, if you put 8 Ohio State games on film and 8 Georgia games on film and you tell me Ohio State's a better football team, I am not buying that. No way, no how. The good thing is if they make it, um, you know, if they make it, they're going to play eventually, hopefully. So when that shakes itself out, it'll work itself out on the field. So it does make a little bit of a difference with who number 4 is. Obviously, number 1 drawing number 4, and number 2 drawing number 3. To me, right now, it makes a world of difference because I think Michigan's a better football team than Florida State. So the number 1 gets the number 4. If I had that matchup, I would want Florida State, not Michigan. That's just me. But, um, I think that's where it kind of plays itself out. As far as if they're the 2 best teams, then they're going to play eventually. And when they do play, I would take Georgia 100 times over Ohio State. Now, can Ohio State beat Georgia? Yeah, I think they certainly can. Um, I think there's enough parity in college football now that I think any of those teams can beat each other. I could see Florida State getting in there and winning the whole thing. So I'm not against the top 4 right now, but for somebody to tell me from what they're looking at that Ohio State's a better team than Georgia, I am absolutely no way am I buying that. So interesting time of year now. The college polls come out, high school football playoffs. So we've got one more game and then we go to the playoffs. So um, I know some of you guys commented you've already been knocked out of the playoffs. So that's the time of year we're in, right? We're in that time of year um, where, yeah, Air Force is pretty good. Triple option when it's good gives people fits. Um, the other comment I have based on football, how somebody let the 49ers get Chase Young is absolutely beyond me. Um, I know that you can't stop those things from happening in the NFL, and I know that teams are struggling are going to get rid of guys to stockpile draft picks. How in the world the 49ers get Chase Young? Absolutely absurd to me. You're going to put Bosa on one side, Chase Young on the other. That to me is just cruel and unusual punishment. And anybody in the NFC needs to be bitching about that trade because hats off to San Francisco. Washington thought Chase Young was a malcontent. They thought Chase Young was starting to do things his own way to make plays. They're obviously trying to unload some guys to bolster draft picks for the future. So they're obviously going down the road now, building for the future. So hats off to them. Hats off to San Francisco for getting involved and saying they'll take that. How the Jaguars didn't trade for Chase Young and find a way to get Chase Young on a defense that's already playing pretty dominant football is beyond me. That I would have made that move. Did pick up a guard, which I think is going to help protect Trevor, which is great for the Jags. And I think that guy's a really good player. Word on the street is he'd like to be a tackle down the road, but he's also I don't know what'll work out with the contract, but I know this was the end of his contract year, so I don't know how the Jags will have to handle that. But at least the Jags picked up somebody to me that helps the roster, so I'm happy about that. But I think if it was out there, maybe we did inquire and couldn't get home. But how the 49ers get Chase Young to me is just absolutely stupid. If they can stay healthy on offense, I think to me that now makes them probably the odds-on favorite to get to, if not win, the Super Bowl. From what I've seen in the NFC, so still don't have a site for an in-person PlayFest clinic. Um, I will be hot and heavy into that as soon as my season ends. Um, I want the site that we held it at. I want that Embassy Suites on the ocean in St. Augustine. Coming off the back end of COVID, they are just booking weddings solid every weekend. So I don't know if I can get in there. And I just don't, as much as I want to do the in-person clinic again, I don't know if another setting for us is the right way to do it. But that will be something I will be looking at, Tim, for sure. I'm also looking into trying to, as soon as the season's over, probably not till January, but I want to start the virtual clinics up again. I want to get some good speakers. I want to get some people that can, give their knowledge of football to other people in the virtual clinic world. And, we did some last year. You were a part of them. I thought they were pretty good. And I certainly want to continue doing that. So if I can't do the in-person stuff, which the other thought, being that I am from New York, Long Island, and PlayFast has kind of made its way around the country. If I can't get the right site here in Florida, I've also thought about bringing PlayFast clinics to other states. Um, I think there's enough interest out there. I think I have enough connections in other states to run a clinic in person. Obviously, the one thing you would need is you would need some feet on the ground helping you put that together. Uh, but I've said several times, I grew up on clinics when I first got into coaching as a graduate assistant. I grew up on Glazier clinics. I absolutely hate Nike clinics. I've been to a couple, cannot stand them, cannot stand anything about them. I think it ends up being a bunch of head coaches talking philosophy, praising everybody there for what we do so that they can recruit. Um, that's not my idea of a clinic. I still love Glazier clinics. I think they've fallen off the map a little bit the last 10, 15 years. But again, I've wanted to, I did the one in-person clinic and then COVID hit. I thought we had something going because I thought I had something relative. High school speakers talking about high school topics to high school coaches. Avoid the bullshit of college and what they do and what they can do with five-star guys that we can't do. Avoid the bullshit of guys telling you how blessed they are to have us in the profession. Get all the guys in the same room that are in the same profession. We know why we're in it. We know why we do it. Let's cut to the chase and start talking high school football. That's my opinion. So, that's why I want to do in-person or virtual clinics. So hopefully we can get that going. But again, tonight was one of the better ones we have. I'm going to try and do one next week. I'm going to try and do one after the playoff game. So we'll get further into the college football season, further along, where we are in our high school season. So appreciate all of you guys for being here tonight. Thank you for following everything on PlayFast. If you want PlayFast on steroids, check out what we do on Patreon. Every week after our games, I give a 3 or 4 drive synopsis of what we did on defense. I show you what we did on defense. I show you the good, the bad, the ugly. I show you our pressure. So if you're ever interested in seeing, do we run what we run? How do we run what we run? Then you need to check out the Patreon site. Unfortunately, my shameless plug on YouTube. I hate doing this, but Patreon is a subscription site. It's $5 a month. That's why I never push it as hard as I push YouTube, because YouTube is free, and that's where I made my mark and cut my teeth. So I still live in the YouTube world. But if you wanted a subscription site, $5 a month is not breaking the bank. That's where you can see us playing things on film. You can see me taking you through huddle clips of how we play things, what we struggle with, what we did right, what we did wrong. There's clinic clips on there from my PlayFast clinic. There's virtual clinic clips on there. There's podcasts that I've done on there. So you can check out Patreon. But thanks for everything you guys do. We have Atlantic City, but we used to have North Jersey and Marion. Yeah, the clinic world in New York, New Jersey's never been good. So I'd love to get into New York, New Jersey if I could. But thanks for everything you guys do. Thanks for following PlayFast. Thanks for being on tonight. If you're playing this Friday, good luck to you. If your season's over, good luck to your studies and what you want to get after. And remember, I'll be hot and heavy after the season's over with videos and clinics and other things. So stay tuned. Keep in touch. Thank you for everything you do for me. Remember, you won't play well till you play fast. Appreciate you guys. See you next time.